Hello, welcome to Coffee Break Courses. I'm going to be your host, Dan Butler, and today my goal is to give you some guided practice through Epic while you have time. And what better time than now than during a quick break. So go ahead and grab your coffee. I've got mine, and we're going to learn something before the coffee gets cold. During this break, we're going to learn about the Prep for Case button. Now, this is part of the Invasive Cardiologist 201 series and focuses specifically on requesting an invasive case from the outpatient setting. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right into Epic here. I'm going to be working along with you. Now, the goal of this course is for you to be able to use this on your computer, on a smartphone or tablet, and allow you to work right alongside with me. So if you want to log into the playground, you're welcome to use the TRN 16840 login and log into the HMH Cath Lab department, and you'll be right where I am. So when we're looking at the screen right here, you can see that we start off looking at the patient list, and this is something that you'll be familiar with as you go through the entire training series. But today we're going to focus on one button, and that button is actually up here on the Epic toolbar, and you'll notice right in the middle of those buttons you'll see a button that says Prep for Case. Now, if you have a patient that's come into your professional office and you realize that they need a cath lab or some type of invasive procedure, this is where we want to go from the outpatient setting to go ahead and order those invasive cases. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go ahead and click on Prep for Case, and the first thing that you'll notice is that you come to the patient lookup. So this allows you to look specifically for the patient that you're looking for without having to dive through the schedule or the patient list or any of the other work lists that you may be used to using. So right now I'm going to go ahead and look up Robert, Arizona State. So I'm going to type in ARI, ROB using the 3,3 rule. And I come up with the patient selection criteria. And when I do that, I'm looking not only at the demographics, but I'm also checking to make sure everything is correct and that I found the correct patient. And in this case, I have, so I'm going to go ahead and press enter. And that's going to take me to the encounter selection for Robert, Arizona State. Now, if that hasn't happened for you, that's probably because he's a brand new patient and nothing has happened in that patient's chart yet. As you can see in my screen, I've actually got some encounters here, and I'm simply going to click Create New because this is going to generate a new encounter with the hospital or a new encounter with me. This opens us up into the navigator that we want to use, or the Prep for Surgery navigator, and this makes it very simple for us to do the things that we need to do. If you'll notice over here on the left, we've got what is called the table of contents, and the table of contents allows us to jump through the navigator either in order, or if I know that there's something that I need to do specifically, I can jump to that section, much like you would in a book. If you've already read the book, you can jump to the page that you already need. In our case, for this coffee break, we're going to jump through each of the sections of the table of contents so that you know what's going on. So let's start at the top. You'll notice that there's a section labeled Prep for Surgery. And in the surgical cases section, this is going to list any surgical cases that are already open for this particular patient. So you can see if he's going in for orthopedic surgery or any other type of surgery, you would see those listed here. In our case for Robert, he has no cases scheduled, and so we can go ahead and move on to the next section. This brings us to consents. Now, consents is obviously a required portion of any invasive case, and this would allow us to scan in any paper consents or any signatures that we have received from the patient. We're going to go ahead and do a fake consent, and I know a lot of times maybe the nurse or some other administrative staff may be getting these consents for you, but just for the sake of knowing what's going on, I want to go ahead and show you how to do that. So in the consents section, we're looking for the Add button. It's a little green plus that says Add. We're going to go ahead and click Add. This gives us a few fields that we can fill out so that we know exactly what type of consent we're dealing with. And in the top section, we're going to see a field that says Received By. And in our case, we're just going to simply type in the TRN number that we logged in with, or in real life, you would simply type in your name. Now my name's already popping up here because I've typed in my name several times, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Once we tab over, this allows us to put the date and time that we've received this, so I'm going to simply use the shortcuts T for today and N for now. And you can see how quickly that allows me to put in that information. So that brings us to the status field where we can type in an R for received, and again we can put the T and N fields. Now, the only other things that we may need to fill in are the signed by, and this is simply who signed the document. And in our case, it was signed by the patient himself, and that's going to be Robert. So I'm simply going to type in his name, and then I'm going to move over to the relationship field where I'm going to type in self. Now, when I type in self, that indicates that that is actually the patient. We can also put in a date that it was signed, or if there was a representative in the next field for the particular patient, we can put in that representative's name. In our case right now for the consent, or as far as the consent's concerned, we've got enough information to go ahead and scan in the document. So if you'll notice at the bottom of this screen, there is a scan button. When we click scan, this takes us to the scan interface where we can put the document in the scanner and go ahead and click the scan button. It'll bring that into Epic. In our case, since we're not hooked up to an actual scanner, let's go ahead and click the close button. Now what I want you to pay particular attention to, even though we didn't scan in a document, you can now see what it would look like if there is a scanned consent actually in the patient's chart. And we can see that now in the consents section. That brings us to the next requirement for preparation for invasive procedures, and that is Write H&P. So we're going to go ahead and go to Write H&P. Now, when we go to the Write H&P section, we have several options for you to do the documentation that you need to do. You'll notice across the top of this section, we've got several buttons. We've got Create in Note Writer, and we'll do another coffee break section on how to actually use the Note Writer. It's a wonderful tool in Epic that allows you to create notes very quickly and uniformly. The next button over is going to be the Create Note section. The nice thing about the Create Note button is if you prefer to work from just a blank document and you have your own style of documenting in a particular patient's chart, you can use the Create Note button. Now, go to Notes. This is a unique button and it allows you to go to the actual note activity where you would be able to create a new note, read any notes that already exist. If you've already created an H&P, you would be able to copy that forward and update that H&P if necessary. So for today's exercise, and since we're short on time, we're going to go ahead and click Create Note. You'll notice when we open Create Note that it is simply like a blank sheet of paper, and this would allow you to type. If you're a Dragon user, you could actually dictate immediately into this particular section. And of course, going over some of the other documentation chapters in other training courses, there are several other ways to document that. You might also reference your training takeaways for physicians, which documents all of the different ways that we are capable of documenting in the Epic system for Houston Methodist. In this case, I'm going to write a quick note, and since this is a training and you know what you would do for your patients, I'm just going to write a quick sentence. I'm going to say this is the H&P for Robert. Now, obviously, in a clinical situation, you would write a much more detailed example of what's going on or an H&P for this particular patient. But just to see how this works, putting in a quick sentence. So let's go ahead and click the Sign button. That allows us to sign the note and actually put it into the chart. Now, very quickly, one of the questions that I usually get in actual classes is, what happens if I don't sign it? If I don't sign it, even though I'm still working on the chart or even though I'm still working up this particular patient, if I don't sign it, none of the other providers in the system can see it. So if you need them to be able to see it, even if you're still working on preparing for the case, you do need to sign the note. So here we can see a select charges window that pops up. Now, if this were for an office visit, if you were working with Robert face-to-face and you needed to enter some charges, this would allow you to do that, and you will see relevant buttons or relevant charges that you can select for that particular visit. In our case, we're kind of doing this outside of the office visit, so I'm not going to choose anything, and you'll notice in this green bar here, it actually says no charges selected for this visit. So I'm going to go ahead and accept this session so that I can accept the note. Now the notes section, or the Write H&P section, changes a little bit here, and you can actually see a listing of all of the notes. This is being pulled straight in from the notes section of the patient's chart. So like I said earlier, if you needed to update this, if you wanted to addend this particular note, you can always come back here and do that. So let's go ahead and take a walk down through the next section of the table of contents, which are going to be orders for surgery. Now, most of this is going to fly by pretty quick because really all we need to order at this particular section of Robert's visit is the request for the invasive case. But a couple of other sections that you may be interested in are the signed orders. So if I click on signed orders in the table of contents, you'll notice that I would see any orders that are already signed for this particular encounter. So if you had ordered any labs previously or anything that Robert needed to do for this particular visit, you would see those there. If we go to the review orders section, this would allow you to review any orders that have been placed already for Robert. So we would be able to see what's been there and would allow us to take action on those particular orders if we needed to delete them, change them, order something else. We would be able to do that from the review order section. Now, since Robert, this is his first visit, and this is the first time we're preparing for a case or requesting a case, obviously nothing's in the chart in these sections. So we're going to go ahead and move down. I'm going to skip location, and we're going to go down to a really important section. We're going to go to order sets. Now, the neat thing about order sets is this allows you to order several things that are commonly associated with a particular type of case or a particular type of surgery. So we're going to use order sets to get a lot of things ordered at once. Now that we're in the order sets and pathways section, you'll notice that there is a search field, and this allows us to search for already created order sets. So let's go ahead and type in the word cath. And when I do that, that gives me a listing of all of the different cath procedure order sets. And what we're going to do is we are going to use the cardiac catheterization pre-procedure order set. It's the first one that's listed there. So I'm going to click accept. And when I do that, looks like nothing happened. If you take a closer look though, you will see here a cardiac catheterization pre-procedure listed directly under the search field. It also has a check mark next to it that lets you know that this is the order set that you've selected and that we're going to be working with. We have one more step before we get there, and that is to, in the lower right of this section, we're going to look for the green check mark that says Open Order Sets. When I do that, this opens the actual order set where I can just run through a checklist of things that I may need to order. Now, you will notice on my screen that I already have some things checked. Now, there's a really interesting feature here called Manage My Orders, or it allows you to go in and create order sets that have pre-selected items that you use on a frequent basis. And in another chapter during one of these coffee break courses, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. For right now, though, you can take a look at my screen and you can see that I've already selected certain things. Starting at the top is the case request. Now, I've got a case request for a cath lab, or I have the option of doing a request for an EP lab. I've already chosen the cath lab, but you'll notice that there is a red exclamation point stop sign next to my particular order, and that's because we're missing some information that's absolutely required. Let's go ahead and click on scheduling/ADT. That's going to open that particular order and allow us to fill in the missing information. So the first thing that we come to is the provider field, where I'm simply going to put in me as the provider. And then the location, where do I want this done? And since we're logged into the HMH department, I'm going to use the HMH Cath Lab invasive location. It's simply a click of a button. This is going to be a class of inpatient, so I just click the inpatient button. And as I move down through, I can see that I've got procedure 1. This is part of the panel. What specifically in the cath lab are we going to be ordering? So again, I'm going to type in cath, and you can see a couple of things. You can see down below that I've got some recent items that I've already chosen. If I were to just press enter here, it would take me to a much longer list of items that I could choose from and get more specific with what I want. I'm going to go ahead and choose one that I've already chosen in the past, excuse me, and I'm going to choose the CV venography. And so I'm going to choose that. You'll notice that the fields below that automatically fill in with information that's been preloaded for that particular order. And I'm going to change the laterality to bilateral. And if I wanted to put in, or if I knew already what type of anesthesia I would want to use, I can go ahead and put that in the anesthesia field. I'm going to go ahead and use just general. And then we're going to continue moving on down the order set. Now, as I scroll down, I get to my nursing orders, which I've already chosen as part of my favorite, which is NPO accept meds. And in this summary sentence here in the blue, you can kind of see the details for that particular order. We can do an informed consent order. You can complete this, complete this consent for, and then it'll tell you in the summary sentence in blue exactly what this is a consent for. Now you'll notice in yours, if this is the first time that you've been in this particular order set, that you have several different options for consent, and simply just run through and check the consents that you need. Now we can go in through intervention consent, and then as we move down, we can go through IV fluids. I've already chosen sodium chloride. If we want to order any medications for this particular patient, we have a medication section. Moving on down through, you can see labs today, and these would be the labs that you want to order associated with this particular case. In this case, I've ordered a BMP as well as a CBC. Cannot talk today. So we've ordered the BMP and the CBC, and then moving on down, I want to go ahead and order an ECG. So once we get the orders placed and we've chosen which orders we want to do, we're going to move down just a little bit, and towards the bottom right of this section, you'll see a button with a green check mark that says sign orders. We're going to go ahead and click the sign orders button. Now I'm getting a warning right now that says recommended items, and that is because this particular procedure, I didn't put in a procedure date. Now, if I don't know the date, if I know that it's going to be at some time, just not specifically when, or if I'm in a situation where I will have the schedulers in my office call over to the hospital and make those arrangements, that's okay. It's popping up as a warning because if I did know the specific date that I want to use, it's reminding me that I haven't filled it in. So right now, that's not a big deal. I don't know specifically what date I want to do this procedure for Robert, excuse me. And so I'm going to click yes. So we're going to click accept through the order validation message. And then that means we have one last thing to do, and that is to sign the visit. And you'll see either under the close encounter section of the table of contents, you'll see a section that says sign visit. I could click on that and go straight there. Or you'll notice that since I've signed these orders, that I have the sign visit section just in my field of view. So I simply need to go to the green check mark that says sign visit and click it. Now, once I've done that, the chart goes away, the patient workspace goes away, and I'm right back to my patient list or whatever workspace I happen to be on. At this point in time, we've requested our case for Robert, and it's going through the scheduling process right now. It's going to the appropriate work queues, and the appropriate people are seeing that and will be either in contact with Robert or in contact with your office. So I hope this has helped clear up how to order or how to request an invasive case for you. And until next time, have a great day.